In the world of live service games, they all must inevitably end. 2024 seen a number of these games reach the end, with major titles ending in September. Tencent's Synced is shutting down after a year of operations, giving their players a 60-day notice for their shutdown date of September 9th. A-Team is shutting down Review Starlight Relive after 5 years of operations, giving their players a 60-day notice to shut down on September 30th. And Concord is being shut down after being alive for 11 days, giving their players 72 hours before they are locked out forever. For those of you keeping track of the math, that means that each day of being live comes at about the cost of $14.3 million, making this possibly the worst game launch of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two big winners with Concord shutting down. First off, the consumers. They tried to push out a game that was garbage, and the consumers universally said no. And there were some content creators that insisted, oh no, it's such a good game, but if it were such a good game, then it wouldn't be shutting down. But the biggest winner in this whole thing, I would argue, is the games industry. Now, let me explain. A lot of these activists that are pushing for these kinds of games, they're a cancer in the industry. They try and strong arm people into getting their way and scaring them. How did they go about doing that again?
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Yes. By threatening individuals with cancellation. Man. Rational minds were shoved out of the space in the fear of angering these mobs of savages on Twitter with their anime profile pictures, and oh, we can't offend them, and oh, they'll actually buy the game if we just make all the games progressively worse with time. So we would have these activists go in, and their enemy number one would be gamers, the people that were their consumers that were supposed to buy these products. They were just idiots that didn't understand the message, and games journalists supported them in this crusade. They bent over backwards, they lied, they would fabricate stories and mistranslations to put down people in the space that didn't bend the knee and support the message. And all of these people would come together and try and be cultural arsonists, burning everything down that didn't fit their worldview. They would rebuild some in whatever image they found that was acceptable, which only they found acceptable. And for those other things that were just pesky things that were, not quite right, nah, fuck it. Just leave it dead forever. No big deal, right? Now, as time would go on, quality in the games industry would go down pretty precipitously. They would add even more ham-fisted representation, even worse writing over time. It would just, every new release, the bar would get lowered and lowered and lowered. And the culmination of all of this is Concord. Concord was everything that the modern audience was supposed to like. You had representations of all kinds. You had fat, you had ugly, you had old, and you had this terrible writing to go along with it that was just some fucking knockoff of Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, they were just like, oh, well, look at how quirky our characters are, and oh, they're meant to look like you, because they're all super ugly, and no one would want to be those people. And they would treat it like, oh, well, games aren't supposed to be something that, you want to play to step away from reality. Those games, they're meant to reflect the ideal world in the eyes of these activists. I'm glad it was made. I am super glad that Concord got created. because on paper, this was everything that the modern audience wanted. It checked every box. And they didn't usurp an existing IP, driving it into the ground and insisting, oh, well, the only reason that failed is because of the toxic gamers that came in and ruined everything. No, they have no one to blame here but themselves. And with this failing, we can all just look at it and say, look, this audience that these people keep insisting exists, it's not there. It empirically, under every measurement, does not exist. If you just say, oh, don't worry, modern audience, people will give you hundreds of millions of dollars, but that modern audience doesn't exist to give back that hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. So if you want a good game, you're just going to have to build a good game. You can't do this thing where you outsource basic logic to the asylum and hope you get a good deal at the end of the day. But what's next for Firewalk Studios? So first off, the executives that were pushing this, they're probably going to get fired. Investors are going to be really mad at this whole thing. They spent a ton of money. By shoving a lot of money into this project, there was an opportunity cost where they could have funded other smaller games that would have turned a profit, or potentially turned a profit, which we don't know because they spent it all on fancy controllers and anime deals with Amazon. This is a catastrophe for PlayStation. This looks really, really bad. This is a huge hit to their prestige. I had expected initially that they would spend at least a couple months before they did something. I didn't think it'd only take a couple of weeks. That means that the numbers were so bad that there was absolutely no justification to, even for prestige reasons or public perception, keep it going. Because if they had done that, they would have had to explain that to investors. And that means that they couldn't have made that argument to say it was worth it. It's really, really bad. Now, as for the studio itself, it's going to get shut down. No one is ever going to trust Firewalk Studios to make anything ever again. Most of those people are going to get laid off. Like, they might have been able to take some of these people and shove them into other PlayStation companies. However, they already did that with Bungie. Bungie, for those of you that don't know, their CEO likes driving two things. They like driving fancy cars around, that are especially antique old ones. And he also likes driving Bungie at the company into the ground. It is horrifically run. It costs a metric fuck ton just to keep the lights on every month. And they don't make hardly any money. They had layoffs not too long ago. They laid off a bunch of people permanently. And then for a lot of others, they were like, we're going to shove you into other studios here under our umbrella to keep you from losing your jobs. So all those positions that these people could have been put into, they probably don't exist anymore. They've probably filled them. These guys are probably SOL. They probably thought that this game was going to succeed because all these executives that were pushing it were saying, oh no, it's going to be great. We've got all this content planned for all this time and it's going to do everything. The modern audience is going to show up and they're going to give us millions. And they didn't. And now the game's shutting down. Some people, no matter what, they're going to look at this and say, good, I hope they all lose their jobs. They all deserve to be fired and get kicked out of the industry forever. I agree with that in terms of the activists. But the people that were pushing these kinds of things, they need to be kicked out. I don't care what department they worked in. I have no pity for you. But for people that weren't pushing that garbage, I look at the programmers. Looks like they all did a very good job. 3D art, good. Animations are good. Cutscenes are good. But once we get into the design side, that's the part where I'm like, this whole area is just rotten. So to start out with game design, it just doesn't play very well. It does not, nothing about it looks like it's setting it apart from other games. And if we look at this now and we compare it to the space for these hero shooters a year ago, it's unimpressive even a year ago. So they've had all this time to make adjustments to make themselves stand out more, and they just haven't been able to do it. I don't understand. If you're a game designer and you're trying to make a hero shooter, what you do is you play all the hero shooters, and then you figure out, how do we make our game feel the best? And it feels, from like, I haven't played it. I've just watched videos because I ain't supporting that shit. But from everything I see, from everything that people talk about, it's just okay. And it is just okay with a $40 price tag. That is not acceptable. Not in this market. Now, if we move away from gameplay and move into the character designs, these are some of the worst character designs I've seen all year. They're awful. No one is going to want to cosplay this. No one is going to be wanting to make any Rule 34 for it. No one's going to want to. No one sees themselves as these characters. They're not inspiring in any way, shape, or form. They were just like, we'll check this box, we'll check this box, we'll check this box. And then when it came to the boxes of what makes this character interesting, they were just like, we checked enough boxes. We're done. Move on to the next thing. It's garbage. It's all really terrible. Moving away from terrible character designs, let's look at the writing. I don't understand this thing for modern writers for a lot of these games. To be good at writing, you need to read a lot and write a lot. And for a lot of these people, I don't think they do either. I think they watch some shitty TV shows or movies, maybe some anime, and then they're like, I know how to write a good story. And everything is just bad. Not even, I was going to say mediocre, but no, it's not even mediocre. Most of it's just bad. It's really cringy. They don't have this thing in their minds where they're like, how would people talk to each other? They're just like, you know, it's going to be really rad. What if they say this and it's just going to be really cool? And then the strong female lead's going to say, oh, you're just an idiot. And I'm just amazing by myself because I'm a woman. And it's like, fuck off. None of this is interesting. This whole thing for these characters being written is they don't resonate with anybody. They have failed to write even one interesting character in this whole cast. They look impressive and they'd look great if they had good character design, and it'd be interesting if they had good writers, and then it would be even better if they had good gameplay to go with it. So basically, their entire design side is just a fucking cancer. And the thing is, if you work in any of those departments, you're probably going to want to leave Concord off your resume when you leave, because no one's going to want to take a risk on you. If you come in and you're like, I was a lead character designer for Concord, they're going to say, fuck that. This person's a moron. If they thought that was good, we're not going to take that risk. If you're a writer and you're like, I'm a lead writer at Concord. You mean that massive failure? Get out. It might not even be worth it if you've been there for like under a year to say that you worked at the company and just say, hey, I worked on these things. I can't tell you what it was. It was an NDA. Sorry. You can even tell them all the stuff that you did. Just say it was under NDA. Are you telling the truth? No. But if it's a place that's not going to hire you because you worked on Concord, I mean, got to pay rent, right? But these fucking activists, dude, so here's the thing that a lot of these activists don't understand, right? So when you go into these companies and you're like, we want to attack our customers and we want to push the message and we want to build something that nobody wants, what you end up getting is a failed product. And in this case, you've got a shit ton of people that work there. They're going to lose their jobs. They're going to go home to their families, for especially the older ones. For the younger ones, you tend to be single. It's kind of like, you can take your risks and go with it, whatever. But for the older folks, a lot of them are married. A lot of them have kids. And in the games industry, if you lose your job at a more senior position, it takes a lot longer to get a new job for that similar kind of salary. Sometimes you've got to move states to take a similar job. So some of these people, they're going to get laid off because of these shitty activists. And they're going to end up having to move. and have to take their families away. Their kids are going to have to leave school in the middle of the school year and have to leave all their friends behind. And they're going to get the, oh, well, don't worry. Yeah, you lost your friends and everything, but we got to push the message. Fuck you. You're such a piece of shit. You can't think of anything beyond yourself and your delusional worldview, and not like the people around you. They want to build successful games. They want to do good things. But if all you want to do is just push some kind of shitty message, fuck right off. You need to find a new place to work. You need to find a new industry to work in. You are not welcome here. Nobody wants you. Nobody, except for the dozens of people that you still have playing your game. It's so disgusting that we have people like this and we put up with them. All of these people across the entire industry need to be kicked out. Because while we sit here and we say, oh, bad games, if you just kick them out, you're going to start getting good games again. Instead, we get this slop, this absolute disgusting, oh my God, I fucking hate it. It's so bad. It's such a huge waste of money. It's a huge waste of all this talent that could be making cool stuff. And instead, we're putting out shit. Why are we putting out shit? Because we might get canceled. You can cancel some people. Cancel the activists. You can save yourself a fortune, and you can make a fortune in the process. What are they going to do? Call you names online? Oh no. Oh goodness. The anime profile pictures are coming at me. Fuck. Get them out. This needs to happen across the whole industry. And now we have something that all these investors can look at and say, that proved my point that this is shit. Every metric that we can measure had this failing. Get it out of the next project we're working on. I will not fund you if you do these things. I will not fund you if you check these boxes. I will not fund you if you have people pushing these things. I do not want these kinds of positions that are run by activists. You need people that are going to put the consumer first, and you need to get your activists the fuck out. And by putting activists in positions of power, they are going to train people under them to become activists. It's a cancer, legitimately. It needs to be kicked out. Now, as for PlayStation, they need to focus on recouping their losses. So might I suggest Bloodborne for the PC, because that would be pretty rad. Maybe we could accept PC sales from all regions, not just limited to the ones for PSN Network. Maybe we could play it safe and bring back some old titles. I know it's really hard, guys. Like, you think of the shareholders and how they're going to deal with this. They need all the help that they can get so that they can get their money back. So we need to help them in finding good titles that they can bring back. Just, it's hard. It's hard. It's a good fucking day, guys. It's such a good fucking day. Oh, man. But that's all I got to say on this. Good job, everyone. And subscribe for other games-related content if you care. Otherwise, hope to see you again in a future video. Thanks for your time. Farewell.